Comics sans cancer. Hey gang, it's your boy. Let's return to that wonderful world of comics. I was recently watching a YouTuber I enjoy by the name of your boy Zach, and he was talking about Ann who was a writer for a couple of Marvel titles back in the 80s and early 90s, namely Spider-Woman, Daredevil, and the X-Men.
You know, respect is earned. Anne earned the respect she gets. The problem right now is that people expect respect automatically, and anything that isn't a compliment is an insult and attack.
And it got me thinking back to the only Daredevil comic I ever got my hands on when I was a kid and collecting comics, which was Daredevil number 265. And sure enough, it was written by Ann Screw. Now back at that time, my mom, being a very religious person, wouldn't have let me buy the greater crossover series that this book was involved in, which was the Inferno crossover, a Marvel-wide event back in '89 that involved books like The New Mutants, Daredevil, X-Men, X-Factor, and a book called The Exterminators, which is awful, by the way. So getting this Daredevil comic where New York turns into a living hell in a box of 30 random back issues was literally a godsend. No pun intended. Now I don't own this issue anymore, so I apologize for the low-res scans because I had to find it elsewhere. But what it did give me an opportunity to do is to actually finally read the main books from the Inferno series. And everything except the Exterminators were fantastic stories, written by some memorable talent like Chris Claremont and Nocenti, just to name a couple. The artwork was usually pretty top-notch, again, except for Exterminators. That shit reminded me of an Archie comic. Now, your boy Zach's argument in the video I watched was that Marvel has always had female talent all throughout its history. Yes, it's a male-dominated industry, however, there has always been good female talent. What he doesn't talk about a whole lot is Ann Screw's politics, which are, I would say, center-left, if not further. Reading about her viewpoints on certain things like environmentalism, and sexism, and feminism, I would say puts her left of Tim Pool, if I had to give an example. But we're going to see some of that in the book bleed through in the writing. But the question is, did Ann ruin the story with her politics? Well, let's take a look at it. Now, as far as the cover's concerned, I don't know who the demon in the background is supposed to be. I guess it could be one of the two main demons from that start the storyline of Inferno, which is, if I'm reading this right, Nastir? I don't know. And I guess it could be Mephisto, even though he's not really in this storyline. Nastir kind of reminds me of what AOC would look like as a demon. So here on the first page we can see that it's called We Again Beheld the Stars, and this is the second book in the Daredevil crossovers into Inferno. It's written by Ann Screw, of course. It's penciled by John Romita Jr. and inked by Al Williamson, so a hell of a lot of talent in this book. Now this issue follows 5 main characters, one of which of course is Daredevil. 2 of the other characters are Butch and Darla, which are a couple of kids from a skateboard street gang that tries to follow and emulate Daredevil. Then we have the main antagonist of this issue, which is a demonic dentist, who we see here in the first page. Another thing about the Inferno crossover, not only does New York become a living hell, but all of the inanimate objects take on a life of their own and possess people demonically. Think of it like Stephen King's Maximum Overdrive meets Tales from the Crypt Demon Knight. The last character we'll see in a little bit, he's kind of like your everyday cis white male. Another part of the Inferno storyline is that the people in New York City don't seem to really recognize the fact that demons are everywhere, and if they do, they just don't care. They've kind of taken it in stride, like it's all blamed on a heat wave and mass hallucination. So we see a little bit of that here when the dentist steps out of his office as a demonized dentist and walks past the waiting room and just has a very casual conversation about how he's a little bit under the weather because he hasn't been out of the city in a while. And then he proceeds to walk up to this police cruiser, knocks on the window, and he's got a great line here. "Lovely day, officer." And that's a lovely bicuspid you have there. Then he proceeds to go ahead and start operating on one of the cops, while the other one just sits there and is like, can you get that guy out of the car, please? And then we get to see a little bit of how demonically possessed the city has become. So Daredevil arrives on the scene, being introduced by these two trucker types who we get to see Ann slip in a little bit of her environmental activism here. These are bad guys, so they're written in direct opposition to environmentalism. We see them laughing as they rev up the engine and blast holes in the ozone layer, and they think it's hilarious until suddenly the smoke starts spewing into their cabin. And they realize, oh, it's Daredevil, and he's bent the stack on the rig. Daredevil then sets about helping out the citizens on the street, but he's doing it in a very kind of robotic, kind of inhuman way. The previous crossover title for Daredevil showed him on the brink of death, and he was brought back to life in a hospital over the course of a few days, and the machines that he was hooked up to in the hospital actually became possessed right before he broke out of their grasp. So I think Daredevil's been a little bit possessed in this story too. Alright, and here we see the introduction of the Fat Boys gang, the two characters, Butch and Darla. And Darla looks like she's been a little bit possessed, kind of reminds me of the kid at the end of Demon Knight who's reading that comic book and then turns into a demon.
Can I have it?
And she's kind of a jerk to Butch too. Darla, why are you so weird? What's happened to you? I don't know. I was buying a Coke, and the machine grabbed my hand. That's all I remember. So quit bugging me, pizza face. And we see Daredevil just laying waste to demons and possessed inanimate objects that are threatening the citizens. And here's where we meet our everyday cis-white male who is just woken up and discovered that New York's apparently gone to hell while he was asleep, literally. His demonic neighbors are doing some renovations, and then he goes out into his living room and realizes he's been completely robbed, and he vows to get the hell out of the city. I'm getting out of this stinking city. I'm moving to the country. Back on the streets, we see our good friend, the demonic dentist, now that he's eaten a cop, is starting to evolve. And I'm pretty sure that the 80s, early 90s were like there was a big anti-smoking press going on in the comic industry. And I don't know if Ann herself was anti-smoking. She was a bartender for a while, so maybe she hates cigarette smoke. But he's tied up a citizen, and he tells him he's arrested him because he hates do-goody, gray-suited, mild-mannered yuppie snots. And while he's at it, here's what I think of the new anti-smoking laws, and he blows a bunch of smoke in his face. I'm just going to read a few of these panels. As you can see, Ann has slipped her politics in here. A city of social Darwinism, that's what we got. Cut out the meek and the timid and the shy. Let only the aggressive survive. Once we weed out the artists, the poets, the tender-hearted liberal saps, it'll be a city of bullies stomping heads as we climb up to the top. It's the law. I see all this very clearly with my white-hot dentist lamp eyes. Back to our cis-white male, whose car has been stopped on his attempt to get out of the city. Oh well, I was stuck in gridlock anyway. Potholes are getting quite aggressive these days. And here we see some more of that anti-smoking campaigning going on here. Then we get further examples of Daredevil just robotically going through, saving the odd citizen, and kicking every demon's ass that he runs into, and it's commented on by Butch and Darla. A bunch of demon heads, decapitated, being whipped out into the street, the Daredevil standing there soaked in blood. You see now, Darla? You see what I mean? See what? He's getting rid of the bad guys like always. No, it's different. This guy, this Daredevil, this one I don't know. And of course we have the inevitable meetup of Daredevil and the demonized dentist officer of the law. It's an 8-cylinder day and my engine's running hot. Gonna take my baby for a drive and fill the sky with monoxide rot. Shut up or I'll pull your teeth, citizen. And of course, Daredevil and the dentist have to meet because that's the story. Burn out that ozone, Cancer City, baby. A coffin nail in every mouth, an exhaust pipe in every home. Cancer City, USA. And he gets pissed when Daredevil starts freeing the people that he's been tying up. Hey Diablo, what you doing, man? Obstructing justice? Aiding and abetting criminals? Insulting a dentist officer of the law? I love it. You're under arrest, Diablo, but first, excuse me while I smoke a cigarette. So Daredevil and him start to fight, and there's demons on rooftops, taking bets on who's gonna win, uninterested citizens walking by, and as the fight goes on, the demons and the citizens start egging them on. Daredevil gets the upper hand, literally, by ripping off the dentist officer of the law's hand after he skewers him with his nightstick, and starts beating him to death with it. So after that big showdown, we start to see Daredevil behave a little bit more normally. He starts doing the environmental thing, picking the trash up, putting it in the garbage. And everybody else starts joining in too, because that's something that they can get behind and feel good about. Lastly, we rejoin the cis white male, and now he's gotten himself a helicopter tour above New York City, just trying to rise above it all, no pun intended. And then off in the distance, they notice that a pentagram has opened up in the sky, which signals the impending closure of the Inferno storyline. And the helicopter pilot says, "Hey buddy, look at that. A pentagram in the sky, sucking up demons like a giant vacuum cleaner. How about that?" And to close out the comic, we see Daredevil sitting in a bar, and they're all sharing a drink while the radio describes how the Inferno storyline is closing at this point and why. Somebody hands him a beer. Rough day? Buy you a beer? How about a toast to New York, greatest city in the world? Well, gang, that's my review of Daredevil 265, written by Ann Screw. So after that clickbaity title, I hope you made it through to this point, because my point with this was, not only does Ann Screw deserve respect for all the hard work she put in getting to the status that she got to, and mastering her abilities writing comics to bring these franchises where they are to today. She was able to inject her personal politics into comics, but she made it funny, and that's how you do it. Most people don't mind being called out on their political bias when you make it humorous and interesting. Good job, Ann. Anyways, let me know what you thought in the comments. Do you want to see me do more 80s comic, or would you like me to cover the Inferno crossover? Took 2 days to read it all, so I'd be happy to. Anyways, thanks for watching this video, and keep an eye out for future Comic Sans Cancer videos. And while we're at it, go ahead and subscribe to this channel on BitChute.com, because if YouTube ever says goodbye to me, or if I ever say goodbye to YouTube, that's where you're gonna find my content. Thanks again, and until next time, I've been your boy. Peace out.